All right, so just the last little part to conclude this section of our notes. So we also in medicine and in science call the platelets thrombocytes. These are small cell fragments or pieces that are essential for the first stages of blood clotting after an injury or after a blood vessel is broken. And in this photograph taken by a microscope camera, the thrombocytes or the platelets would be the teeny tiny little parts in the background that are being pointed to by both these small arrows and my big arrow right here. All platelets or thrombocytes lack a nucleus because they're cell fragments, not whole cells. And they're also produced in the bone marrow, as we saw with other components of blood yesterday. So continuing on to the top of page number 9, the thin membrane of platelets or thrombocyte. Oh, sorry, we're still on the bottom of page 8. The thin membrane of thrombocytes or our platelets are easily broken if exposed to any environment other than our blood. And when this happens, they will release a clotting factor, a type of protein called thromboplastinogen, if they are broken. So why is this clotting factor or protein thromboplastinogen important to know about? Is that it's going to start a sequence or cascade events that's actually going to create the formation of a mesh of protein fibers within a blood clot. So as we turn to the top of page number 9, we're going to talk about these other important proteins that are going to be involved in clotting. So we're going to talk about thromboplastin, prothrombin, thrombin, fibrinogen, and fibrin at the end. So this is going to be summarized by the diagram you have on page number 9, so you don't have to worry about writing it down. It's just a preview of where we're heading. So on the top of page number 9, before we go any farther, I would like you to write down the definition for the term blood clotting. So this would, again, be more of a general term. The more medical or scientific term would be coagulation of the blood. And blood clotting or coagulation describes the process by which blood changes from a liquid to a gel-like state, forming a blood clot. This is a way that our body stops bleeding when we injure ourselves. Page 9. I'll get one for you. We're in a new booklet. So in my picture, just below the definition, What's supposed to look like a mesh would be all of the fibers coming together in the blood clotting process. So when a blood vessel is damaged by injury, its outer surface is no longer smooth, and in the process, some platelets will become broken. When this occurs, the clotting factor or protein called thromboplastinogen is transformed into thromboplastin, which is a type of protein enzyme that converts another protein called prothrombin into another enzyme called thrombin using calcium to help. Now, why is this newly created protein important? It will then convert fibrinogen, a soluble protein, into an insoluble protein called fibrin that forms kind of this mesh-like looking structure in our images. This fibrin is made up of long fibrous strands that act as a network or meshwork across the wound. It helps to slow the escape of blood from the wound until bleeding eventually stops. So this idea about all of the proteins involved in the process of the formation of a blood clot is summarized for us halfway down the page, and you'll have that exact same picture. We just have to write two terms, so we have everything from our notes in the picture. So clotting factors like thromboplastinogen are important to create thromboplastin, which then is important to convert or change the protein prothrombin into thrombin. This new protein called thrombin will then change another protein that's soluble in the blood called fibrinogen to an insoluble form of fibrin. And these fibrin strands will adhere to the area and start the formation of insoluble blood clots. And in particular, underneath an electron microscope, these strands of fibrin would look something like this. So everything is in our summary except for these two enzymes that I would like you to add. Overall, all of these proteins are important from getting the damaged blood vessel to the initial formation of a platelet plug or a group of platelets sticking together, and eventually the development of clot when the fibrin strands adhere or lock into place. And then our final image on the bottom connects to the one disease or disorder that affects platelets we wanted you to be aware of. When blood does not adequately or clot properly using this mechanism we see in this image, where a damaged platelet releases thromboplastinogen and causes these sequence of changes of thrombin, prothrombin changing to thrombin, and then fibrinogen changing into fibrin. If that doesn't happen properly, someone may have a bleeding disorder called hemophilia, which is described on the top of page 10 in our booklet. So the single disease affecting platelets we wanted you to be aware of is hemophilia. This is when a person's blood does not have enough platelets or has a low platelet count. And as a result, they may not have any blood clotting occur if they have an injury, which means they're going to continue to bleed and have to get to the hospital immediately to have this stopped, or the process of blood clotting may occur very, very slowly. So that concludes looking at the components of blood. And we have about 6 minutes left in class time. And you can get a head start on your homework so you can enjoy the long weekend. Remember, you have no school on Monday. So before you come back to school on Tuesday, I'm going to ask that you work on the final questions about blood on page number 61 and 62. So page number 61 is actually going to take you back to part of yesterday's class. On page number 61, all of your possible answers are on the bottom of the page, and you have to put them into the correct location to complete this summary chart about the leukocytes or the white blood cells. And then I'm also going to ask that you do over the long weekend the questions about blood and blood clotting in particular. So what they have given is a sequence of images describing how blood clots form after a blood vessel is cut or is damaged or injured. The sentences are not in order, and your task is to put the images in order, matching the steps in which blood clots within your body. So that will be your homework, and you can get a head start on that for the last few minutes of class.